So today I'm talking about how to do restoration building work and make sure that you're conforming to all of the rules and regulations that you should do. I can't overemphasize the importance of this because if you do work without the necessary procedure, without the necessary permissions, you will have great difficulty selling your house, but also you won't be able to rent it out if you want to. Because now, in order to rent out, you need a registration number from your local council. In order to do that, you need to show a certificate of agibilità, which basically shows that all of the wiring and the plumbing meet current regs, and also that everything, all the work that you've done has been done above board. There's one exception to this. So there's a certain category of work that comes under edilizia libera, so free building. So if you're just painting and decorating, if you're replacing the kitchen without changing any of the plumbing, if you're replacing bathrooms without changing any of the plumbing, if you're changing floors, all of that, you don't need permission. You don't need to tell anyone you're doing it. You can just do it. The other thing is if you're replacing a heating system or cooling system with something that's more energy efficient, you don't need permission for that either. But anything that involves anything more pesante, heavier than that, then you do need to. So basically, there are sort of three categories of work. So there's edilizia libera, which I've described. The next thing is Acila. And Acila involves your technical, so your geometer, your architect, or your engineer, sending a list of the work that actually is going to be done to the council. Work that comes under a category where Acila is enough could be rewiring and replumbing, could be replastering in a big way. Anything that doesn't involve any structural changes comes under Acila. Everything that needs structural changes, so for example, opening and closing doors, reorganizing the internal space, putting up maybe plasterboard walls or knocking walls down, changing the roof, all of those require a shear because there's a structural element. So much like with a shear, your technical has to inform the council of what they're doing, what you're doing. You can start work straight away, but the council has 30 days to comment and say, no, actually, we're not happy, you can't do that. Or you can do that, but you need to do it in this way, not in the way that you suggested you were going to do it. And obviously you have to abide by that. With either a chila or a shia, the council could come and inspect at any point. In my experience, they send you letters saying, we're going to come and inspect, and then never actually turn up, but that's another story. Obviously, it keeps you on your toes. The other thing to be aware of is that if you're restoring a property in a historic centre or in the countryside, there are two other sort of levels that you have to go through. So with the historic centre, you have to have the approval of the Sovrintendenza. So that's not the same as it being listed. That's a whole other can of worms. It's just that there are certain things that you can and can't do in a historic centre. And that could take an extra 45 days. So it could mean you can't start work straight away. The trick is to put it in before you actually start work, so that by the time you want to start work, you have that opinion. Essentially, you can't change facades, you can't modify facades. In some councils, you can only use certain colours for the facade or for the paintwork and so on. But that's essentially what it boils down to. The other thing is that in the countryside, there's the Sovrintendenza Paesaggistico, and again, there they will look at things you can and can't do in the countryside. Again, they're not going to be happy with modifying facades. Depending on the council, they also won't be happy with you eliminating sort of historic features or things which are typical. So I had a ridiculous thing recently where there was a non-functioning bread oven that wasn't even that historic. It had been added in the 70s, possibly even 80s, but we weren't allowed to get rid of it, because that was a typical thing that you'd find in the countryside, which was frustrating. But there you go. Um, the other thing with the countryside thing, and I think rightly so, but it can be a headache, is in terms of outside paving and landscaping and so on, they're not happy now with surfaces that don't drain. So you will be limited as to the amount of paving that you can have, outside your building. Historically, you see, which I hate actually, but you see lots of countryside properties that have huge, sort of vast expanses of not very nice sort of cement floor tiling. It's not unheard of for you to be told at the stage where you're applying for pool permission that that's got to go. So you're allowed sort of slabs of stone with earth between them, so without cement, so that it still drains. Um, but that's something else that you have to be aware of. So with either a chila or a shia, you're opening the cantiere, so you're opening the building site, and at the end of it, you have to close it with attendant paperwork. So at the end of the work, your technical has to sign off that the work's been done. Your plumber and electrician should give a certificate of conformité saying that the work is according to how it should be. And then if you've made any internal layouts, that's got to be changed on the land registry. And you need to have, as I said, the famous certificato di agibilità at the end. All of these things have an extra cost, so you need to be aware of that. And in my course, see the link below, I break down the different steps, the sort of this should cost you from this to that. But they're all things that you have to do. If you're in the countryside, you also need permission to permission to get rid of your waste. So if you have a fossa imov, which is the new accepted sort of form of waste disposal, you need permission to be using that. And all of these things can take a frustratingly long period of time. So don't count on, for example, being able to rent something out straight away, because all of the work's got to be signed off first. So that's it for today. More information on my blog, www.personalpuglia.com. And as I said, if you want to have a look at the course, there's a link below. Thank you. Bye.